in every game, there's bound to be Pokemon you never used before, whether it's because you couldn't find one, you still couldn't find one, or you never ended up finding one. Looking back at it now, they were really easy to find. I just couldn't read. Anyways, there's a bunch of reasons for not using Pokemon, and today is the day I use Pokemon I never used before in Pokemon Y. So this is another game where I've used all the starter Pokemon before, so we meet up with friends, grab a starter, and face Shauna. With that, we can get started, and luckily for us, we can get our starter Pokemon on Route 2 being Bunnelby that we never ended up naming, so we'll just go with Bunnelby. Besides, we're gonna pretend like it doesn't evolve into that. The reason why I never used one before is because, let's be real, the only thing on Route 2 anyone is grabbing is Fletchling, and you can't change my mind. I will say I think it's going to be an okay Pokemon, like it's not going to be a powerhouse, but I don't think it's going to faint like every battle. I mean, looking at what it can know, it knows some pretty solid moves, and it also has an adamant nature, so I couldn't have asked for a better nature. So let's see, let's check his base attack. 56 in attack. Well, that's not good. On Route 22, we can get our next encounter, but before we could, Rising Star Louise was not playing games. I just left town and she sent me right back home. It was crazy. This Litleo would somehow always get the burn, making us do way less damage and also take more damage as each turn goes by. And we only won because they finally didn't get the burn. Anyways, we get ourselves a Litleo. Yeah, crazy, huh? Considering I was just getting whooped by one. We name her Peanut Butter, and the reason why I never used one before was because when I first played the game, I was like 12, and I had searched up, is Litleo good? Cause you see it and think, what? Fire Lion, it has to be good. Just for people to say it was straight garbage, so I never gave it a chance. Honestly, now I think it's gonna be really good, but I will say this is my first time using a Pokemon who's fire and normal, so I think I'm gonna end up forgetting it's part normal like all the time. Now that we have everybody, with that, let's face our first gym leader, Viola. And I'm messing up already, having the wrong Pokemon out, so we switch into Bunnelby while they use Water Sport, weakening fire type attacks. We go back and forth, but we get hit with a crit bubble, leaving us pretty low, but they're low as well. I just hope that we hit first, so we use Quick Attack, and it turns out we are, and we knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Vivian, and thinking we're going down after one move, we use Quick Attack while they use Tackle, and we live with 4 HP, and also Water Sport ended. After that, we just kept spamming Quick Attack until we eventually go down. But that's when we send out Peanut Butter and just spam Ember until we finally win. And just as I thought, it wasn't too bad, but I will say Bunnelby carried this fight. Not only did he take care of Surskit, which was gonna destroy Peanut Butter, but he lived until a Water Sport win away. So he's looking pretty good so far. As for Peanut Butter, it's still too early to tell, just because Bunnelby really carried this fight. On Route 4, we can get another member being Flabebe that we named Cream Cheese. The reason why I never used one before was because when I did use fairy types, I always used Sylveon. And I did want to use other fairy types, but there were trades, so I could never use them. So honestly, I never gave anything else a chance, so I'm pretty excited to use something different, and I think Cream Cheese is gonna carry hard. So with that, we got a lot of stuff to do, so let's get to it. In Lumio City, we head to the professor's lab where we obviously meet the professor, and he asks us to battle. He had all 3 Kanto starters, and we ended up winning because Bunnelby took on a 1v2 against Squirtle and Charmander. You know what? Maybe Bunnelby isn't as bad as I thought. On the other hand, Cream Cheese isn't looking the best right now, even with a super effective move. We did like 2 damage and ended up losing to Squirtle, but it's alright, it's still too early to tell. After the fight, he lets us choose a starter, but since we can't use any of them, we pick a random one and send it straight to the Doom Dimension. After that, we head to the cafe where we get introduced to Lysandre, who makes technology and who's a bit crazy. We also meet Diantha, who's just as concerned, and she's a celebrity but also a trainer, but more on that later, and I mean like later. We head off to Route 5 where we get another Pokemon being Pancham that we named Syrup. The reason why I never used one before is because just like Sylveon, all I ever used was Hawlucha, and I don't remember using any other fighting types, so again, I just never gave it a chance. Nor do I really use fighting types that often. So I think it's going to be really reliable, not just in certain fights, but also random trainers we run into. And I don't talk about it often, but having a go-to Pokemon to deal with any trainer I run into makes life so much easier than Pokemon that are only good in certain fights. It also has an impish nature, raising its defense but lowering its special attack, which I think is a great nature for Syrup, but what do I know? After that, there's a Snorlax blocking the way, so let's move it. We chase down a dog with Shauna, watch some fireworks, get a flute, wake up Snorlax, and then immediately run away. After that, we cross a mountain, fight some bad guys called Team Flare, and I don't care what anyone says, their poses are awesome. After that, we make it to Cyllage City. So before we faced the gym leader, we had a problem. This gym trainer right here straight up mopped the floor with us. It was so bad. Psybeam did way too much damage, taking out our whole team with ease. The worst part is that she had 2 Pokemon and she only used 1 to wipe us. It was so bad. Alright, fine. She's forced my hand. It's time to grind. And soon enough, Bunnelby evolved and I'm so butthurt. I'd be lying if I said I evolved it when it was supposed to, but I couldn't get myself to do it until the very end. I was devastated. Anyways, Cream Cheese evolved into Floette and now we can have our rematch, is what I would like to say, but it turns out I forgot to hit record, so I literally have nothing to show you except all my losses. But just know I barely won that fight. With that, we can face our next gym leader, Grant. They go first using takedown, doing more than half, while we use arm thrust to completely knock them out. His next Pokemon is Tyrant, and they go first using Stomp, leaving us with 6 HP, while we use another arm thrust, but we didn't do enough and we only got them to half HP. We sent out Bunnelby, and after taking a hit from Stomp, we used Double Kick and even got a crit, but we only managed to get them to red HP while they use Rock Tomb, lowering our speed. Next turn, they use a Hyper Potion while we miss a Mud Shot. After that, we spam Mud Shot while they spam Bite, and we were so close to knocking them out, but we went down first. We sent out Syrup, and since Mud Shot lowered their speed, we go first using Karate Chop to win the fight. Now my first question is, how is it possible we're only at the second gym and this man has a Hyper Potion? That is straight cheating. Anyways, the gym leader was not hard, but we are finally seeing how bad Bunnelby's attack can be. It had me stressing. I guess the only good thing is that it's very tanky. When it comes to Syrup, she has a solid attack, but she's slow and has no defense, so that's a bit concerning, but hopefully evolving it will help with that, but that's not happening anytime soon for anyone because apparently nobody else evolves until like 30 something. And something else that I found really funny is that we were actually struggling with a gym trainer more than the actual gym leader. I don't think that's ever happened to me. Now that we're done here, we head to Route 10 and fight some more Team Flare grunts, but it wasn't hard and we even found a secret base of some sort, but since we can't go in, we leave and run into Korrina, who's the fighting type gym leader. After talking for a little bit, we battle and Syrup was not playing no games, taking out both Lucarios. That is wild to me. Syrup is already proving me wrong. After that, we head to Reflection Cave where we would get whooped all the time. I didn't realize how weak we are to fighting types, and that's a problem considering our next gym leader is Korrina. I thought we were gonna be just fine, but I guess not. Now we do have a counter with Cream Cheese, but that's also the problem. Cream Cheese doesn't do much damage and is super fragile, so once she went down, it was a wrap. We all went down. I did search up where to find a shiny stone, but you can't get it until after the fighting type gym, so that sucks. Luckily, Syrup evolves right at the level cap, so that should help us a lot. Now that we're in Shalour City, we got some story to do, so let's speedrun this. We head to this big tower, talk about Mega Evolution, turns out only one of us can have it. So we battle our rival for the first time, and this is how it went. They go first using Meowstic and use Fake Out, making us flinch. Next turn, they use Psybeam while we use Takedown, and it didn't do nearly as much as I thought, so we just start spamming attacks before knocking ourselves out. We send out Peanut Butter, and with 2 headbutts, we finally knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Frogadier, so we switch into Cream Cheese and get hit by Quick Attack, but after that, we use 2 Magical Leaves to knock them out. They did leave us with 14 HP, so when Absol came out, we get taken out by Quick Attack. We sent out Syrup, and we almost had a scare when they used a Crit Slash, but it wasn't enough and we used 2 Karate Chops to knock them out, winning the fight. And you know what? I was wrong. Bunnelby is falling off hard. Like I said before, it just doesn't do enough even with being tanky. So we're gonna have to figure something out, but I'm not really sure what. Also, Cream Cheese has finally won her first battle, and it was a long time coming. She's still not off to a great start, but I'm still hoping that she's gonna come through. With that, we can finally head to the gym, but as we face the trainers, we are still getting whooped. Cream Cheese can't handle more than one Pokemon, and we have to send everyone out, barely beating them. So before we face Korrina, we backtrack to Cyllage City and get the TM Aerial Ace and teach it to Syrup. So hopefully that helps out. We also try to evolve Syrup, but messed up. So we needed a dark type Pokemon in our party for Syrup to evolve, and I totally forgot about that. It also doesn't help that I forgot about super training, and I could have got a shiny stone from there, so I was just choking hard. I didn't think about super training until after we beat the game. With all that, let's face our next gym leader, Korrina. And my goodness, this was embarrassing. Once she sent out Hawlucha, she spams Flying Press like there was no tomorrow and completely wiped our whole team. It was terrible. I haven't lost that bad in so long, and I busted out laughing. Alright, let's try again. A couple attempts later, and this happens. With Cream Cheese, we pretty much spam Fairy Wind to knock out Mienfoo and Machoke, but by the end of it, we had gotten hit with 4 Leers, and for some reason, I stayed in when Hawlucha came out, and we were only able to land 1 Fairy Wind before going down to 2 Flying Presses. We send out Bunnelby and they go first using Hone's Claw while we use Rock Tomb, lowering their speed. Unfortunately, they're still faster and land a Flying Press to one-shot us. We send out Peanut Butter and use Noble Roar while they use another Flying Press, and we live with 1 HP. So knowing we don't hit hard enough, we just use another Noble Roar, lowering their attack again before going down. We send out Syrup and it turns out they're faster and they use a Flying Press, and I thought it was over. But no, we live and use Aerial Ace to win the fight, and honestly, this fight probably would have went differently if I wasn't so rusty. The decisions I made were so dumb. Anyways, Cream Cheese is looking way better as we can take a couple fighting type attacks now, but it's still lacking when it comes to power. Also, Bunnelby isn't looking that good when it comes to attacking, but it does pretty well when it comes to slowing things down. But I will say Syrup is so slow, it's not even funny. But it's alright cause we still won, and she also evolved into a Pangoro. Once we leave, we still have some business with Korrina, so we head back to the tower where we meet her at the top and have a battle again. But this time with just Lucario, and we got whooped because I didn't want to use Mega Evolution. So once we rematch her and use Mega Evolution, we won with ease, but I will say this will be the only time we're going to be using Mega Evolution. After the fight, we actually get to keep Lucario because it has like a special bond with us, but that's crazy because you going straight to the box. After that, we steal this man's Lapras, sail the sea for like 3 seconds, ride a goat, and finally get that shiny stone. I was gonna evolve it, but then it turns out it doesn't learn any new moves after it evolves, so I was really conflicted to evolve it or not, so we just kind of held off for now. But at least we can get a good raw to finally get our next encounter on Route 8 being Scarelp that we named Blueberry Jam. The reason why I never used one before was because I could never find one. I always wanted to use this Pokemon ever since I got the game, but never ended up finding one, but it was my fault. Because I remember looking at the exact location on where to find it, but didn't bother reading to see what type of rod you were supposed to use. So I just kept using an old rod and never ended up finding one. So I just gave up. Oh, man, that's kind of embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. I do think it's gonna be our overpowered Pokemon, so we'll just have to see. Heading back to Coumarine City, we have another battle with our rival Serena, and just like last time, Bunnelby does like 2 damage and gets whooped by Meowstic. I did teach it Power Up Punch, but didn't think about how broken it could be until after we went down. But you'll see that as we play. Anyways, we send out Blueberry Jam and immediately get taken out with a crit Psybeam, so that went bad fast. With that, we switch into Peanut Butter and use Headbutt to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Frogadier, so we just use Headbutt until we go down to a Water Pulse. We send out Cream Cheese and use 2 Magical Leaves to knock them out, and our next Pokemon is Absol. They use Quick Attack while we use Fairy Wind, doing about half, and next turn they use Bite to knock us out. So we send out Syrup and use Karate Chop to win the fight, and that went just as bad as the first time. But I think we'll be ready by the time we face her again, because even though Bunnelby has been struggling a lot ever since it's evolved, teaching it Power Up Punch might have just fixed that problem, and also Cream Cheese is starting to hold her own. Before we faced the next gym leader, half of our team was almost at the level cap. So we had to face all the gym trainers with mostly Blueberry Jam and Bunnelby, and the two Pokemon super weak to grass. But it was my fault because I just kept the XP share on the whole time. But it wasn't as bad because we had camouflage on Blueberry Jam, making us change our nature to grass. So they would do way less damage, making it easier to deal with. But I think this was the only time you really struggled with the level cap. But it really doesn't happen again. Anyways, with that we can face our next gym leader, Ramos. And this is about to be a breeze. Until it wasn't. They kept using acrobatics doing decent damage while Peanut Butter wasn't doing much with Ember. We switch into Cream Cheese and get destroyed again, and it wasn't until we sent out Bunnelby and landed a Rock Tomb where we finally knocked him out. His next Pokemon is Weeping Bell, and we use Power Up Punch while they use Astro Acid. Next turn we use Strength and almost knocked them out, but they somehow live and use Poison Powder. After that we just kept using Strength and eventually we knocked them out. He sends out Go and we use Strength doing a little more than half while they use Bulldoze, and we live with 11 HP, but the poison from earlier finally took us down. We send out Peanut Butter and we use Ember, but it didn't do enough and we go down to Bulldoze. So we send out Syrup and with an Aerial Ace we win the fight. That did not go as planned. I thought Peanut Butter would be able to destroy all of his Pokemon, but it just doesn't do enough damage. It also sucks because it evolves right after this gym too, so that's just unfortunate. So yeah, I am a little disappointed, but it still hasn't evolved yet. But I will say, if it's evolved and it's still not good, well that sucks. Other than that, we solved the problem with Bunnelby by teaching it Power Up Punch, raising its attack, and then using a different move to do massive damage, so that's great. Now that we're done here, it turns out there's been a power outage, so we go to the power plant and find out the reason why it's out is because of Team Flare. So we beat up this grunt and he tells us that he actually lost the keys to the power plant. So once we find them, we run past them and go inside, and it turns out there's a bunch of people here, so after we beat them up, we eventually fight the admins, but they were really easy. Anyways, the lights are back to normal and Peanut Butter has finally evolved into a Pyroar, so hopefully that makes a difference. Before we make it to the city, we run into this really tall guy who says something and leaves. Now that we're back in Lumio City, let's face our next gym leader, Clement. We go first using Ember while they use Volt Switch, switching into Magneton. Next turn, we use Ember again doing massive damage while they set up an electric terrain. After that, we use another Ember to knock them out. His next Pokemon is a Heliolisk, and we go first using Headbutt while they use Thunderbolt, knocking us out. We send out Bunnelby and they go first using Quick Attack while we use Power Up Punch. Next turn, they do it again while we use Strength to knock them out. He sends out Emolga and uses a crit Aerial Ace, but Bunnelby doesn't feel a thing and used a Rock Tomb to knock them out, winning the fight. And finally, Bunnelby came through and destroyed Heliolisk and Emolga with HP to spare. It might not hit hard, but nothing a little Power Up Punch can't fix. Who knew one move could make that much of a difference? Also, Peanut Butter is doing a lot better as it's really fast and does way more damage now. I will say having Ember at 35 is crazy and its moveset isn't that good. So hopefully we get something better soon. Other than that, I love Clement. I think he was great in the anime and I don't care what anyone says. It's thanks to science. Once we leave, the professor asks us to meet him at Lysandre's cafe, so we head over there and talk, and Lysandre starts talking crazy. But I wasn't listening, and with that we head to Route 14 where we meet up with Trevor and Serena. And honestly, Trevor only cares about the Pokédex and how far we've gotten, but we only got like 5 Pokemon, so he was not impressed. With that, Serena wants to battle again, so we do. And we were struggling at first as Blueberry Jam couldn't do much damage, but at least we got them with Poison Point. And Bunnelby got destroyed by a crit Psychic, but after taking a disarming voice and using Strength, we did just enough damage as when we go down from Psychic, they also go down from Poison. After that, with Syrup, we use Power Up Punch to take out Absol and Greninja, and like I said, Power Up Punch is a straight life hack. With that, the whole crew gets together and we all go to this haunted house where this dude tells us a scary story, and all I can think about are all the haunted house episodes in Pokemon and how those were actually really scary to me. Or maybe not even scary, just more creeped out. Anyways, after giving the dude some money, we all go our separate ways. Now that we're in Lavere City, we can face our next gym leader, Valerie. With Peanut Butter, we use Flamethrower to one-shot Mawile. Her next Pokemon is Mr. Mime, and we use a flamethrower doing a little more than half while they set up a light screen, raising their special defense. So next turn we use Headbutt instead, but we don't get the flinch and they use Psychic doing massive damage. Next turn they heal while we use another Headbutt. After that we were able to land another Headbutt, but since we didn't get the flinch, they used Psychic again to knock us out. We sent out Bunnelby and they set up a Reflect, raising their defense while we used Strength. But it wasn't enough and they live with 3 HP, and next turn they heal again. I'm stressed. We use Rock Tomb, lowering their speed, and after that we tried using Power Up Punch to raise our attack, but we still did no damage with Rock Tomb. But at least we were able to lower their speed by a lot before going down to 3 Psychics. After that, Reflect wore off and we sent out Syrup and used Slash to knock them out. Her last Pokemon is Sylveon and they use Dazzling Gleam to one-shot us. So we sent out Cream Cheese and they use another Dazzling Gleam, but this time it was a crit. So we were only able to use Flash before going down to a Swift. After that, we sent out Blueberry Jam and they use Charm while we use Sludge Bomb. After that, we spam Sludge Bomb until they finally go down to win the fight. And this was probably the second hardest gym we had to face, just because Mr. Mime was mean. Not only did it hit hard, but it used Light Screen or Reflect depending on what we had sent out, so that was crazy work. Pokemon wise, Peanut Butter is doing way better now, but that Light Screen was its downfall. But either way, it's pretty solid now. Bunnelby did pretty good at stalling even though they healed back up, but we got them right back down and even got rid of Reflect. They even lowered their speed so much Syrup had no problem going first, and surprisingly Blueberry Jam actually won the fight. I thought for sure we were gonna go down just because it didn't look like we were gonna do that much damage, but we surprisingly did a lot more than I thought. I will say it does suck that we couldn't evolve it for this gym because it evolves so late. Now that we're done here, Shauna said that we should go to the Pokeball factory that's nearby. So we head there and it turns out Team Flare has taken over the place. So we beat all of them up, head to the office where we fight the admins and also these 2 ladies with green and blue hair, but I honestly don't know how to say their names. Anyways, after we beat them up, the president gives us a Master Ball. With that, we leave and head to Dandemil Town where we evolve Cream Cheese into a Florges and also teach it some new moves. With that, we cross a snowstorm and make our way to Anastar City where Serena wants to battle again, so we do, but honestly we had a counter to all of her Pokemon, so they all go down. I will say Cream Cheese finally took down Greninja and Absol on her own, so that was really cool. With that, we can face our next gym leader, Olympia. They go first using Psychic to one-shot Blueberry Jam. So we send out Bunnelby and use 2 Rock Tombs before switching into Peanut Butter, and after taking a hit from Psychic, we use Flamethrower to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Slowking, so we switch into Cream Cheese and get hit with Yawn. Next turn, we use Petal Dance, but it wasn't enough and we go to sleep and get hit with 3 Psychics before waking up and using another Petal Dance to knock them out. Her last Pokemon is Meowstic, and since we're slower, we get knocked out by another Psychic. So we send out Bunnelby again and use 2 Rock Tombs before going down and then switching into Syrup and using Crunch to knock them out, winning the fight. And honestly, that went better than expected. I thought Bunnelby was going to be more of an attacker as we played, but being tanky and support is just so much better as it took a bunch of hits from Psychic and let my slower Pokemon hit first. And Cream Cheese went from doing no damage and being fragile to taking hits like a champ and hitting hard. You love to see it. After we leave the gym, Lysandre sent out a message saying if you're not a part of Team Flare, then you're gonna get killed by the ultimate weapon. I mean, I knew I wasn't paying attention, but that's a bit extreme, no? So we checked to see where his hideout could be, and it turns out to be at his cafe with a secret entrance. We go inside and we run into him and we battle. And once he sent out his Gyarados, it was a wrap. We got destroyed. It didn't even matter what he used, he just did so much damage that our whole team got wiped. That was rough. Let's try again. And this time we send out Cream Cheese first and we use Wish before getting hit with a high jump kick. Next turn we use Moonblast to one-shot them and also heal back up. He sends out Gyarados and we immediately switch into Peanut Butter and get hit with Iron Head, but it didn't do much. After that we use Noble Roar 2 times to lower their attack and special attack before going down to an Aqua Tail. After that, we send out Bunnelby and spam Rock Tomb to lower their speed until we go down to another Aqua Tail. We send out Blueberry Jam and use Thunderbolt, but they live with 1 HP. That's terrible. I guess it wasn't too bad because we do get the paralysis. They use Earthquake and we live with 26 HP, so next turn they go down after another Thunderbolt. After that, we send out Cream Cheese and wipe the rest of his team with no problem. After that, we chase him down where we find this really tall dude from earlier locked up, where we get this cool but sad cutscene. Oh, we also fight this scientist named Serosect, and after we beat him up, he still activates the ultimate weapon that's gonna wipe out the whole world. But we know where it's located, so we head to Geosinge Town, where we find that secret entrance from a while back, fight an insane amount of grunts where a Blueberry Jam evolves. After a little bit, we eventually make it to the bottom floor and awaken Evoltov, but we just throw a Master Ball, and with that, we can face Lysandre one last time. We send out Cream Cheese and spam Moonblast to take out most of his team, but when we didn't one-shot Mega Gyarados, we get hit with a crit Iron Head to knock us out. We send out Peanut Butter and use Hyper Voice to win the fight and stop the ultimate weapon. Well, now that we're done with that, let's move on. Oh wait, it feels like I'm missing something, but I can't put my finger on it. Oh well. Now that we're in Snowbell City, it turns out the gym leader is not at his gym, so we get lost in this forest, find a Pokemon that I thought for sure you couldn't find at all. Wait, I swear I have the footage and I don't know where it's at. I am so stressed, but it was a group of Trevenants. I think that's what you call it. Anyway, soon enough we find them, solve the gym puzzle that took way too long to figure out, and now we can face our last gym leader, Wolfric. And tell me why it took me longer to figure out the gym puzzle than to actually beat the gym leader. All we did was send out Peanut Butter and Flamethrower everything in sight. Finally, we catch a break. Now that we've beaten all the gym leaders, we head to Victory Road where we face Serena for the last time, and this is how it went. With Syrup, we use Crunch to one-shot Meowstic. Her next Pokemon is Altaria, and we switch in a Cream Cheese and get hit with Dazzling Gleam. After that, we use Moonblast to take out Altaria and Greninja, and her next Pokemon is Flareon, so we switch in a Blueberry Jam and get hit with a Lava Plume. Next turn, we get hit with Bite and Flinch, so we couldn't move, but they did get poisoned because of our ability, Poison Point. After flinching again, we finally move and use Surf, but it wasn't enough and we leave them with 1 HP, so we go down to another Bite. But it worked out as well as Poison finished them off. After that, we sent out Bunnelby and used Power Up Punch on Absol, but we couldn't knock them out in time, so after they used a couple of Swords Dance, they used Night Slash to knock us out. So we sent out Cream Cheese and used Moonblast to finish them off, winning the fight. And all I can say is that she was really hard at first, but once everyone started to evolve, Serena only got easier to beat. Now that we're done with that, we can face our first Elite Four member, Wickstorm. They send out Klefki and go first using Spikes while we use Rock Tomb. They do it again while we use Strength, but it wasn't doing much, so next turn we use Earthquake to finish them off. His next Pokemon is Aegislash and they use King Shield to block Earthquake, so next turn we do it again and we land it, but it didn't do much and they land a Sacred Sword, almost taking us out. After that, we use another Earthquake and for some reason we do way more damage and they go down. His next Pokemon is Probopass and we use another Earthquake, but they have the ability Sturdy, so they didn't go down and they use Flash Cannon to knock us out. We send out Peanut Butter and they heal while we use a Flamethrower, not doing much. So next turn we switch in a Blueberry Jam and get hit by a Power Gem. Next turn we use Surf to knock them out. His last Pokemon is Scissors, so we switch in a Peanut Butter and use Flamethrower to knock them out, winning the fight. And all I gotta say is a whole Aegislash lost to a Diggersby. That's crazy. Overall, Bunnelby went crazy because we didn't do any EV training at all, so our attack is really garbage, and with Earthquake we still managed to beat it. That's insane. With that, we can face our next Elite Four member, Malva, and with Blueberry Jam, we use Surf to one-shot Pyroar. Her next Pokemon is Turkle, and we use Surf again, and they lived and used Earthquake to do massive damage. Next turn, we knocked them out. Her next Pokemon is Talonflame, so we switch in a Bunnelby and they use 2 Brave Birds before we were able to land a Rock Tomb to knock them out. Her last Pokemon is Chandelure and they use Flamethrower to knock us out. So we sent out Peanut Butter and used 2 Dark Pulses to knock them out, winning the fight. And honestly, I thought Blueberry Jam was gonna sweep, but I didn't realize that Turkle was gonna do that much damage. Overall, Blueberry Jam actually isn't as good as I thought, as we struggled facing Pokemon we're supposed to be strong against. But I will say it helped a lot when it came to facing every Team Flare member, even Lysandre. Other than that, teaching Peanut Butter Dark Pulse was pretty cool. With that, we can face our third member, Drasna. We send out Bunnelby and use Earthquake while they use Surf, only doing about half. Next turn, we start spamming Earthquake as they kept using full restores, but eventually we use enough Earthquakes to finally knock them out. She sends out Druddigon and they use Revenge to finish us off, so we send out Cream Cheese and use Moonblast to knock out Druddigon, Altaria, and Noivern. That was crazy. And Cream Cheese was not pulling any punches. For a long time, Cream Cheese was struggling to even win one fight, and now it's whooping bosses and Elite Four members like it was nothing. It's come a long way, and it's definitely a Pokemon I really like now, but maybe it's because of its type, but we're gonna pretend like it's not because of that. With that, we can face our last Elite Four member, Seabold. We go first using a crit Thunderbolt on Clawitzer, but they live with 1 HP and land a Dragon Pulse, almost knocking us out. Next turn, they heal while we use a Thunderbolt to finally knock them out. His next Pokemon is Gyarados, and they use Earthquake to knock us out, so we send out Syrup and they go first using Dragon Dance while we use Rock Slide to do more than half. Next turn, they use Waterfall, but it wasn't enough, and we use another Rock Slide to knock them out. His next Pokemon is Starmie and they use Dazzling Gleam to knock us out, so we send out Cream Cheese and they go first using Light Screen, but Cream Cheese said get that out of here and uses an Energy Ball anyway to one-shot them. His last Pokemon is Barbaracle and we use 2 Energy Balls to knock them out, winning the fight. And yeah, and it turns out I was wrong again, as Blueberry isn't our overpowered Pokemon, Cream Cheese is. I've noticed that Blueberry actually doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does good damage if you know what I mean. It's also a bit fragile, so I feel like even if we have the advantage, they always gotta move to counter Blueberry, so sometimes we always end up going down. But it's not all that bad, as its coverage makes up for that. I was also wrong about Syrup. I thought we were going to use her more, but I think it's because she was a lot of help, and she became backup when something went wrong, so I'm actually regretting not using her more. Now that we've beaten the Elite Four, there's only one more person to face, and with that, we face the champion, Diantha. With Hawlucha, they go first using a Flying Press, but it doesn't do much and we use Thunderbolt, leaving them with red HP. Next turn, they heal while we use a crit Thunderbolt to knock them out. She sends out Aurorus and we use Surf, doing about half while they set up a Light Screen. Next turn, we use another Surf, but since we couldn't do much damage, they use Blizzard to knock us out. We send out Syrup and use a Hammer Arm to finish them off, and our next Pokemon is Goodra. So we switch into Cream Cheese and take a hit from Focus Blast, and next turn we use a Moon Blast while they use Fire Blast. It turns out we both don't do that much damage, so after Light Screen went away, we use another Moon Blast to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Tyrantrum, but we just use another Moon Blast to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Gourgeist, so we switch into Syrup and use 2 Crunches to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Gardevoir and they Mega Evolve and use Moonblast to knock us out. So we send out Bunnelby and they go first using Moonblast that did a lot of damage while we land a Rock Tomb, lowering their speed. So next turn we go first using another Rock Tomb before going down. So we send out Peanut Butter and use a crit Dark Pulse, thinking it was going to be super effective, but I was dead wrong and we get hit with Psychic that did a lot of damage. So next turn we just use Flamethrower to finish them off, winning the fight and becoming the new champion. If you like this video and want to see more stuff like this, like and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. And with that, I hope all y'all have a great day. See ya.